a washed-up oceanographer on a voyage for vengeance and for the hope to reclaim a last bit of his former glory. Three grieving brothers boarded a train across India 1 year after their father's death, embarking on a journey of spirituality, self-discovery, and family reconnection. These are the core premises of the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, released in 2004, and the Darjeeling Limited, released in 2007. The two movies we will discuss in today's episode, the Wes Anderson Director's Series.
Beings?
Okay, so apparently you are very excited for this episode because you enjoyed these two movies.
So far I've enjoyed all of them, really.
That's good.
Apart from Bottle Rocket, which I think it's a bit unfair to maybe judge that too harshly, but I've enjoyed all these films so far.
That's good. So if you have to pick one out of the two that you like more.
Out of these two, I think it's strange because I do deal with like similar issues and topics, but in such different ways. I don't know. They're both. I enjoyed both of these.
That's
like
good.
a lot.
That's good.
Maybe the Darjeeling Limited. I mean, it is so good. It's just like I can see like with Steve Zissou, like some of the stuff in that like maybe doesn't hit as well and it's a bit longer and a bit all over the place maybe. But and the Darjeeling Limited is like I feel like story wise it's there. Like you know. You don't have to think too hard and it's like laid out pretty well for you and all the characters are, I feel like done very well.
Yeah, I think it's very hard for me to pick a favorite out of these two as well. But I did enjoy the Darjeeling Limited a bit more, probably because I'm just a sucker for like a one location movies. You know, like we discussed like Barry with Ryan Reynolds, the phone booth and things like that. But in terms of review ability, I think the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou is more rewatchable. So, like if you watch it a few times, you will notice different things because there are a lot of things going on in this movie, right?
I don't think it's meant to be there to like confuse you. It's just kind of how he structured it. Like when you look at Darjeeling Limited, it is very simple, straightforward. Like there's no like his usual kind of strangeness that are going on. Like it's just kind of the strange characters like usual.
Yeah.
But the story is straightforward compared to the Aquatic Life where it's just like, what is like even from the get-go. Yes. And it's just like they're all sitting in the theater watching this film like, all right, here we go. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Sit down for this film. And then it's just like fake fish. Like I don't even know what I should have looked up the effect they use for all the Aquatic
the stop
Life.
motion.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like a part of the world that is like, oh, this doesn't seem real because they talk about that as well. But and you're like, what's happening? And then there's Bill Murray like talking. He's just like, we're here now searching for the jaguar shark. I don't even know. Was that what they were looking for at the beginning? I don't think so.
So in the beginning, he was presenting one of his documentaries.
Yeah.
And during that documentary, there was a sequence where his best friend Esteban,
Poor Esteban.
got eaten. Well, I mean, okay. So if we are going to jump into the Life Aquatic,
let's get into it.
I want to mention something that this is Wes Anderson's most unsuccessful movie financially. So it had a budget of $50 million.
Is that his highest so far? I'm trying to remember what the Tenenbaums were. I think that was like 23 or something, wasn't it? It wasn't 50, was it?
So I think this one, during one of the interviews, he mentioned that this movie went over budget, went over schedule, and the box office for this movie was only $34 million worldwide. So it lost a lot of money, and the critics and the audience seem to disagree with the quality of the movie as well. Yeah. But it seems like the movie is gaining a bit more popularity these days.
As time goes on.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, okay. So the synopsis of this movie is quite lengthy, to be honest.
Well, I think it like you could go quite simple. It is Steve Zissou's story, kind of about his like end of his life or end of his career. Maybe is maybe a proper look at it more than anything else, because there are a lot of other characters not revolving characters, but poignant characters that have like story arcs and things going on, but it is his story. Like you said, like if you really wanted to get into it, like it can be quite long, but it can be like Steve Zissou's story and like him figuring out where he is at life. Obviously using his film documentary kind of life, running into his son, you know, figuring out where he's going to get money to do the next film. dealing with his popularity, like failing, the new up and comer that's taking all the popularity from him, and his ex-wife's partner as well. So it's like there's a lot of like, even just with that, there's a lot going on in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main storyline is Steve's best friend Esteban got eaten by this fictional
jaguar shark.
The humongous jaguar shark. Apparently, it's supposed to be a 10-meter long, luminous spotted jaguar shark, and because Esteban is supposed to be Steve's best friend and right-hand man.
Yeah.
So he's on the voyage of vengeance just to search for this jaguar shark.
It's literally what he says.
Yeah.
Because I think Jane comes in later, who's
the
a journalist who's interviewing him. And she's like, asks him, like, why are you doing this? And he's like, revenge. There's no, he's not trying to like, try to spin it or change it. He's like, nah, I'm going to do this for revenge.
Yeah. And it seems like, I think I started to notice this similar theme of Wes Anderson movies as well. His characters tend to distract the audience. They would tell the audience one thing, but the true motivation for them is different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's a very human thing as well, to be like going for something that maybe like distracts from maybe the real goal, like maybe to take a bit of eye off something, or like maybe, if I do this, maybe it'll help me reach this other goal. Because he's like, Steve is very lost in this film because his main goal is like trying to keep his success going.
Yeah.
And as we start this film, as he shows off showing his new film, and everyone was like very hit and miss. The lady that like comes out and like, what'd she say to him? She like, what'd she say?
She asked a question in the beginning, right? Or
no, she comes out of the cinema.
Yes.
And she comes up to him and says like one thing to him.
Yes.
Like not sorry or condolences. She says one word and he's like, oh, is that all you got to say?
Yeah. Is that all you got to say about my documentary?
Yeah. She doesn't think it's any good.
Yeah.
And like, he's like, oh, here we go. He already feels that like the tides have changed, if we want to use the pun.
And one thing that I really like about all the characters that Wes Anderson created, that all of their actions, all the dialogues really help us understand the personalities of the characters. Out of that those small sequences, those small dialogues, you can tell straight away Steve is a very narcissistic, very self-important person. And, like all he cares about is his success and how he can get more out of it. Because
the first interaction, I think he runs into his wife, who's kind of a bit nonchalant.
Yeah.
And her ex is there, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Hennessy. That's why I was like, Hennessy. I remember like Hennessy, such a strange name.
Alistair
Hennessy.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's chatting to her and then he like comes over and then they're like, they're chatting and he's like, because he's getting all the grant money, he's getting all the money and all the like popularity from it. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God. And even before that, he talks to a woman and she's like, I don't really want to speak to you because it seems like they've had an affair or did have an affair. Yeah. And then the wife comes in and is like, oh, who's she?
Yeah. Another one.
Yeah, like it's like very, so it already sets up that for Steve's character that he kind of sleeps around a bit, even though he raves about his wife. Like through most of the movie, he doesn't really talk down about her much.
Yeah, but he doesn't agree with other people when they say that, oh, your wife is the brain behind the operation.
Yeah, early on, they like, because I think it's I don't know if it's in the film or they talk about it, but they like assign roles to everybody. And they're like, she's the brain.
Correct. And Steve is the captain, but...
That's a very similar theme in this film, is like hurting his ego. Many times in this movie, his ego is hurt and he takes great offense to it and tries to like cover it up or even prove that wrong.
Yes.
And it never works.
Yeah, but I understand part of that as well, because when a lot of people don't believe in you, you always try to prove them wrong. And even though it might come across as egocentric in a way.
I understand from that point of view, which is complete. I think that can be right.
Yeah.
But this is like it does come across that way, that she's taking like a lot of the, why have I forgotten the word?
Like the money, the grant.
Not the money.
The credits for.
The credit. Like she's taking a lot of the credit for it, where he feels like he deserves that. More than like he can just be like, oh, it's like a team. He doesn't go like a team effort. He's like, oh no, it's me.
Yeah, and the common consensus is Steve Zissou is one of the most unlikable main characters of Wes Anderson movies.
Out of the movies we've watched so far, probably up there.
Like the main characters, though, like he's
definitely.
very unlikable. Let's dive a bit deeper into his psychosis. So we know that this
you've diagnosed him, Darren. Dr. Darren has shown up.
Yeah, okay.
The new period. Let's go. Dr. Darren has diagnosed Zissou.
Well, I'm not sure if this is a diagnosis, but I read a few posts about this character, and they believe that his main motivation is not just about reclaiming the glory. I think in a way they think that he knows that his glory days are behind him. So right now he's just doing like a desperate attempt to try to reclaim it. But in a way, it's a journey of self-destruction as well, because he knows that there will be no way for him to get back to his former glory.
Yeah, because like he's lost Esteban, right?
Yes.
Whether how much of he had played a role in it, but he seemed important enough to his like maybe his mental state.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like affected him enough that he's just like lost it. Because like I said before, he's literally doing his next film for revenge.
Yes.
Like it isn't for any kind of like, educational purposes or he thinks it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's literally like, well, it's for revenge.
And that's a bit ironic as well, right? So let's say if your friend is got murdered by this shark and you want to exert revenge, why would you want to film it?
Well, he wanted to throw dynamite. What did he say? TNT or dynamite and blow it up?
Yeah. But it doesn't matter how you kill the shark. Why would you want to document that journey though? Because it's a very personal journey, right?
It is. And they're even like, isn't it endangered? Isn't this like against the law to try to like kill it as well?
But that's one of the comments that he got from the movies, from the first documentary. People were like, oh, but this shark is very rare that you're supposed to save it or, and he's like, no, I'm just going to blow it up with the dynamite.
My God.
So his character is very sarcastic, very ironic in a way, but I think it's just a common thing among all the Wes Anderson
I think that's just
characters, right?
Yeah, that's just a Wes Anderson thing.
Another flaw of him is he's a womanizer.
Yeah, definitely.
And it seems like he uses the power that he got, all the fame, all the money, and all the success that he got from his documentaries for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. He alleviated that to like interrelationships and things like that.
Yeah.
Because it's insane. Because if we push a bit further, when Jane comes into it, he ends up having a little thing with her, and she even like admits to him that she had
awkward.
like she had like a little bit of a crush on him, and he's like, oh, like I can use this.
And she was pregnant.
I thought that was hilarious. So she's like, I ran away from my like boyfriend who's actually married. So he's like, I'm his like side chick, and it's like he got me pregnant. I'm like, oh my God. And that's very Wes Anderson though. Like that's like. This character is very, like, all the characters are usually, like, a bit strange, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and the common theme in a lot of Wes Anderson's movies are the dysfunctional families.
Yeah, definitely.
The broken relationships. And it just gives me the creeps that Steve Zissou tried to hit on Jane. Even though he knew
he tried to make out with her. Remember when they're on the balloon? And he, like, tries to make a move, and she kind of, like moves out of the way a little bit, and he's just like, oh.
And that sequence is very well thought out because his character is is some sort of like entitled character, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I took you on a balloon. I told you about some of my trauma. Now I can make out with you, which is very, very ironic.
And even called like dibs on her as well. They like talk about that. Zissou's got dibs or whatever, and it's like
he was talking to Klaus, like played by Willem Dafoe. And it's like, not this one. Not this one.
And it's just like, okay.
Like, did that happen before? Well, I mean, like, I kind of know that that's what's going to happen when they have a topless script supervisor.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
It's just like very random. Another aspect of this character is it seems like he doesn't put a lot of importance on other people's effort and help and financial situation. For example, he took advantage of his wife's family money. Like his wife's family funded all of his voyages, all of his equipment and the boat and things like that. And then he still came back to her to ask for more.
And at that point, she had like, I don't know if they split, but she like got out. He's like, yeah, I'm not hanging around you anymore, and moved off.
Yeah.
And when they had they they got attacked by pirates.
yeah.
And they robbed him of everything. And he goes back to her and is like, hey, can you please, like, can we have some of your family's money? Because we're, like, done. But she ends up doing it, but comes back with the money. But she joins them back as well to join the crew again.
Yeah.
Which helps as well. Like, she, like, comes back in and, like, gives it a bit more of guidance where they're kind of a bit, like, all over the place.
Yeah.
Because even then, like, we haven't talked about Ned yet, but his, like, son comes in.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, you remember this woman? He's like, yeah, I'm her son. I'm probably your kid.
Yeah.
And even that's played off weird. They're like, oh. He's like, goes, oh, all right, what's he saying? I'm like, I'm going to go have a smoke or I'm going to go talk to someone. He like walks off and does something and then like comes back and is like, oh, sorry about that. And then like they go back into I'm like, what is this? What is going on now?
I might be your son. Yeah, just give me a minute.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
I'll get a cigarette first.
This is like it's like a weird interaction, but there's a lot of that kind of stuff in Wes Anderson films.
Yeah.
But then like that goes into it. He's like, oh, I could be your son.
Yeah.
Like I feel like maybe like I think he's like he says I'm an air pilot.
Yeah.
And I'm like I've got to go back. He's like, oh, come back to the island with me. Steve says, and he's like, oh no, I've got to go back. Like at a certain point, he's like, oh no, come anyway. So he goes to the island with him, and they like connect a bit, and they talk, and he's like, oh, what did you think you would have named me if I was
your son?
Your son.
Yeah, I wouldn't call you Ned.
I wouldn't have called you Ned.
Yeah, Ned Plumpton.
Great name.
But this is another detail. Well, two things. The missing father seems to be the similar storyline with this movie and the next movie that we're going to talk about. The second thing is again, we recognize Steve's narcissistic trait. He told Ned that, okay, if I were your father, I would have named you Kingston or Kingsley Zissou.
Because even that sequence is so funny because he's like, what's he say? Oh, I would have named you Kingsley. He's like, oh, like Kingsley Plumpton. He's like, no, you could have Zissou. Like, it was weird. It makes sense that he would have just been like Ned Zissou. Mm-hmm. But no, it was like, oh, no, you would have completely different.
Yeah. And there was a small sequence when he woke Ned up in the middle of the night when they wanted to film the jellyfish.
Yeah.
And that was the point where he asked Ned to be part of the crew.
Yeah.
But before he did that,
No, because as they're doing this film sequence, he's like the boom guy. He's holding the mic, and they're like talking about the jellyfish, and they're like illuminating. And he asks him the question. He's like, "Oh, why are they illuminating? Is it like the electromagnetic thing in this, or is it?" And he's like, "Oh, no, it's actually like the reflection of the sun or something like." The moon. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, that's a really good question." And he's like, "You film all that?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh," he's like, he thinks like, "Oh, maybe this is something I can use to like make my films better."
Exactly, and that was my
not to
my
be
point
closer,
well.
not to be closer to my
right.
son.
Exactly right. And I still remember that sequence. After that interaction, he got the cameraman, hey, come over here, and film this. And then he asked the son, hey, Ned, you're my son. Can you join my crew?
Yeah.
And then cameraman cut, and he was like, that was so poignant. Why didn't you put it in the movie?
Yeah. What?
What?
Yeah. So it's not like something for him or even just like personal growth or even just trying to get to know your son. Just like, no, I'm using this.
Yeah, to make my movie great again.
Not long after this, he calls up his what would you call it?
His airplane. Like
No.
His airline.
No. Steve Zissou, because they're trying to get the money, right?
Next
film.
The financier.
The fancy, and it's Michael Gambon. I was trying to remember who he was the whole time watching it. And he's like, yeah, we don't get the money. He's like, what? He's like,
but
no
you told me 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. He's like, no, we're not getting it. So like, obviously the film's not going through, and Ned's like, oh, my mum just passed away. I've got like $250,000.
Yeah.
We can use that for it. He's like, okay.
That sequence pissed me off so much because like we could tell very clearly that Steve is taking advantage of Ned because
even more so now.
Even more because Ned is a big fan of him. Like he wrote him a letter when he was a kid, and he
still had the ring. He had like the member ring from the like club.
Funny story about that. So it's called the Zissou Society, and it was inspired by Jacques Cousteau. So a big influence for this movie. And Jacques Cousteau was the founder of the Cousteau Society.
Well,
so now we have like Zissou Society. It's like a paying homage to this oceanographer. And
You got there.
Yeah, I got there at the end. And this Jacques Cousteau character is a big inspiration for this whole movie. And we can talk about that a bit later. But it pissed me off so much because right now, like $250,000 is a big amount of money. It's his inheritance, and he didn't even think twice.
Because that's kind of Ned's character. He's very kind of honest and straightforward.
No, I mean like Steve Zissou didn't think twice.
No, yeah. Well, neither of them did. That's what's funny. They're like he was happy to offer up his dead mother's money.
And even Steve's wife was like, "Yeah, you're gonna take advantage of him."
Yeah, she already called it.
Yeah. And
that's when she's like, "I'm gone. Like, I'm not sitting. I'm not going through this shit."
Yeah, and later because of this big amount of money, Ned became an investor instead of just a crew member. And the investor sends a stooge to make sure that the money is well spent.
What was his name? He was great. I love that guy. The financial guy that like follows them along.
Bill Ubel.
Bill
Ubel, played by Bud Cort. Or the nickname is Bond Company Stooge.
Yeah, that's what they call him, the Bond Company Stooge. Because they're like, what are they in the elevator going away from the bank? And they're just like, you're not going to like bust our balls or something.
Yeah.
And then I think Steve's like, I think I was a bit harsh on you. And he's like, hey, let's all hands in. Let's all like do this together. Hey. And I like it. The guy's like, oh yeah, I'm like in on it. And he actually is. He's like a part of the crew. And I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I will say, like, we haven't touched on the crew much, but that was a very good part of this film, I felt. Because like you said, there's a very big family like tie through this whole story. But I do feel like his crew is his family.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he realised it because early on you see from Willem Dafoe's character, Klaus, he's very, like, sold into it.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like that Ned's coming along.
Yeah.
And even he slaps him.
Yeah.
Which was great. He's like, He's like, don't you do that again.
Yeah. And apparently Klaus considers Steve to be his father figure.
Yeah. Because that's why he was upset. He's like, Ned, you can't just come along and be the son.
Yeah.
Aren't I the son? That's how I saw it.
Absolutely. And like you have been on so many adventures with Steve. You've been in many dangers for him and with him. Like at least he can consider you some sort of like right-hand man, right? And then this guy just appears out of nowhere. Hey, I'm your son. And then you get to be part of the crew. You get the uniform, the hat, the shoe, the gun.
The gun. I did like that was funny.
The Glock.
Here's the Glock. Everyone's got to have a clock. And he's like, even the interns have a Glock. He's like, yeah, they've got one to share. I'm like, oh my God.
Nothing
more than, documentary filmmakers of the sea. They need a clock.
Oh man.
Those fish. They come at you.
But can you shoot a gun underwater?
I don't think so. I think the velocity is like not as good.
Yeah, I think those guns are meant for the pirates, right? Just in case.
And that didn't even work out that well, did it?
But the crew is definitely a big part of this movie because it seems like they are the counterweights for Steve's self-destructive behavior. And I think being with him on so many adventures, they kind of understand his personality,
how he functions and stuff.
So they are there for him. Well, in a way, I think Klaus is the only person who is there for him mentally and physically. All the other guys are just there. Yeah,
kind of just along for the ride. Yeah, definitely. Because one of my favorite is either the danger guy who's singing all the David Bowie songs in Portuguese.
Yeah.
I love that. Every like cutaway and then him on his guitar like singing a David Bowie song, and I'm like, this is great.
This is great.
But I'm like, isn't that not his job at all? I love that. He was like the danger specialist because it was at the start. He had like the flare and he just like threw it. He just lights it and he like throws it into the water, and I'm like, what?
And he was the one who tested the dynamite as well.
Yeah. And then I'm like, he's singing David Bowie songs in Portuguese. That's a better job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Out of his crew, and there are some few additional characters as well, like the Swedish masseuse, just on board all the time.
You gotta have one of those, right?
And I really like. During the sequence where Steve introduced the boat. Like different compartments.
That was a great scene.
Yeah. And this is where we really see Wes Anderson's dollhouse style, where you see different compartments you can move from one place to another. And, you got a bit of details about Steve's negligence as well. Like, especially when you get to the engine room. Like, we're supposed to get this engine fixed.
Yeah, fixed, but
but you know what?
It'll be right.
we can't afford to.
Yeah.
And a bit of a side note, a bit of a funny note as well. Jacques Cousteau, in one of his documentaries called The Underwater World with Jacques Cousteau, one of the characters was wearing a red beanie.
Is that where they think they got it from?
No, definitely. This is where
That's where they got it from. Well,
got it from.
What about the blue outfits?
The blue outfits, it's not from the documentaries, but the wetsuits are from the documentaries.
Okay.
So this is like a combination. In the original documentary, they decided to give the character a red beanie just so that they can have a bit of a sense of artistic and adventure, or else everyone would be just wearing the same clothes, living in the same gray color submarine underwater station.
It does seem like a very Wes Anderson thing. The way he kind of uses colors and then costumes.
Yes.
Usually is very distinct for characters.
Yes. As you can see on our screensaver back there, a lot of the characters can be identified just by the colors and the outfit.
Because even Ned, before he joins the crew, he's always got his air pilot's hat. So it's very distinct in showing who they are, and that's what they're part of them. It still shows through most of his films, which I enjoy.
Yeah. Another member of the crew is Angelica Houston.
The wife.
Angelica Houston's character, the wife. What's her name again? Eleanor Zissou. Eleanor Zissou. And what do you think about this character?
I thought she was interesting. She doesn't have a huge screen time, but it's more pinnacle for kind of Steve's character of because he does rave about her as being a wonderful wife. But then it's just he's jealous when Hennessy comes along, but then he's also having affairs. And as soon as she leaves, she's yeah, I'm not going to be a part of this crew when you go on this next adventure. She buggers off, and then he's instantly trying to hit and flirt with Jane.
Yeah.
And it's just okay. So he's literally very contradictive about what he wants.
Yes, and I really like this character played by Angelica Houston as well. It seems like she might be the person who has the most understanding of the scenarios and the knowledge and the skills. And basically, she's the one who carries the boat. And
there's a good reason for it. Even though he's angry and upset that the label she gets for being the brain of it, she is. Because when you get later in the film and she comes and helps them, it instantly gets better, and you can see he notices that he's oh shit, I'm being up my own ass, haven't I?
And I really like the small sequence where the stooge got kidnapped, and then he escaped, and then he made a call back to the boat.
Yeah.
And then all the guys was come on, man, just tell me where you are. And
come on.
And he was yeah, this man helped me escape. His name is he's a very nice guy. I don't think I can call you guys again. But by the way, the location is you spend the first 1 minute down
yeah. Just telling the story. Then here it is, and then cuts out.
It's But Eleanor was the only person who could recognize.
She's it's one of these islands, and it's let's go check these islands out.
Yeah, that's a good sequence. And finally, there are quite a few conversations online about the true meaning of this movie, because it seems like it's just a weird adventure by a bunch of people trying to reclaim the former glory. But I think over time, when people start to get older, they seem to relate more to different aspects of the movie. Hence, the audience score on Rotten Tomato kind of changes,
increasing
now.
up.
Yeah,
this is maybe the first time I've watched it through. I do think that the story's there. I don't think it's hard to gather or follow. There's a lot of things going on that might distract you. There's the kid, there's his kid, there's Jane, there's all the crew, there's the thing going on with Hennessy. But I do think it's still there, and I do think it is interesting with Zissou's character of how he goes from trying to use everyone for his own gain to having the turning point of I feel like the pirate thing was nearly almost a turning point for him when they got attacked by those pirates. For his character, because that's when they go back to the mainland, and he goes to ask his wife. He's I need your money, I need your help, and she's what did he say? I need to woo you. And she's no. He's can I woo you anyway? It took me 2 hours to get here. Can I just come in and try to woo you anyway?
I love it when she started the conversation your cat is dead.
Yeah.
Can you just break the news to me a bit softer?
Yeah, and it's just which one was it? I think that's when he's slightly discovered hey, I can't just go about this how I usually do.
Okay, interesting.
Because he's I want to go save the guy, which is something surprising, because at the start it was this is maybe a guy you weren't going to care about, but he ends up caring about him. And he's I've got to get the money back for my son, and then it's just like, oh, you know, there's all these other things that are coming up, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe instead of like trying to go film the shark and go ahead and like ignore these problems, he tries to go fix it.
Yeah.
Where he could have easily been like, no, let's still do what I want to do and not worry about what everyone else wants.
Yeah.
Which
That's
I
an
think
interesting point.
Big turning point.
But there was another small sequence where during the pirate scene, when he was like blindfolded, and then for some reason he became this Superman character.
I love that scene because he freaks out. He's like, no, I'm going to do this. He's like, I'm going to take on the ships. And they have this weird like fake action scene, which is great. I feel like it just suits the film so well, where it's just like everything's like everyone's like missing shots. Yeah. Like they're going boop, 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 and you can tell how fake it is, and they're like and he's like Zissou's just like running at them as they're like firing at them, and it's like I just think it's great because it's like the film's already like, you know, that's kind of the style of it. And then like an obviously clear like fake action scene.
Yeah. But for me, like during that time, I kind of didn't understand where he got that power from. Is it always in him, or is it just like a moment where he decided to do the right thing?
I think it was. He was just like the whole time he's trying to reclaim what he's lost, right? And this is literally the moment they're literally taking it from him. The pirate has come on, taken some of his crew, taken his son, taken the money. They're literally taking it from him. So this is like, I have to do something because they are taking it from me. It isn't like metaphorically, like someone else is taking all the grant money. My wife's leaving me because I'm an asshole. You know, I'm using money from my kid because no one wants to give me money anymore because my films aren't good. It's like right in front of him. If he doesn't act, it's done. You know?
Yeah, well, I think that sequence was great, and right after that, there was a mutiny as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's like he's an idiot, he is, and they're like, and he's like on top of the ship. Yeah, and he's like,
he drew a line. Yeah,
and then what did he say? He's like, if you want to be a part of this, don't cross over the line.
And then Klaus
is like confused. He's like steps over and he's like, what? He's like, wait, what did you say? What is it? A step over the line to be? He's like, no. He's like, I was very confused.
Can you do it again?
Yeah, do it again.
I love that. I love Klaus. Like, even though he's a very small role in this movie, he's just like so funny. And most of the intern quit.
I wonder why.
Yeah, even the topless script supervisor quit.
I do love when they leave and he's like, I'm not going to fail you, but I'm not going to pass you.
Yeah. You get an incomplete.
You get an incomplete.
It's like, we almost died. Just give us a B or C plus or something. Oh, yeah. Even then, he still thought about himself.
That's what I mean. Because even the whole scene, he goes down, he's like, didn't you film? I had a whole dramatic moment to Jane. Because she's like, didn't you see that? I had a whole dramatic moment with like the mutiny and stuff and like who's on my side or not. She's like, oh.
No. But because she was with Ned, right? Or because Ned was captured and, you know, he got thrown back into the boat. And they took
he's that unconscious.
Yeah.
And she's like caring for him.
Yeah. That relationship is a bit weird as well.
But that's like the other part of this, like we haven't gone over yet, the relationship between Ned and Jane.
Yes.
So Jane and Ned have like kind of started up a little romantic relationship. But in this time, Steve is still trying to like get into her pants. Yeah. And hasn't seen it just yet. But I think it's not that point he sees it. It's a bit later on where he finds out that they're like sleeping together. And he gets really upset at Ned. And he's like, nah, you're gone. How dare you? And it's like, what is this? It's
and then they had a bit of a punch out on top of the boat as well.
Oh, that's funny. He punches him and then he like punches him back.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And the pirate thing happened because Ned was supposed to be on guard.
Yeah, he was on guard duty, but he was sleeping with Jane or with Jane.
That wasn't the first time. I think that was like the third or the fourth time of the movie. Like they slept together first.
Yeah.
Steve found out, and then later.
This is the one that like put the ship in danger though. That was the thing. It was like, you've chosen kind of being a bit selfish over like watching. Yeah. You know.
And the small detail of this as well, Steve changed Ned's name on the sheet. He crossed it out. It was just like Kingsley Zissou.
Yeah.
And the cloud was like.
I remember that. Who's this guy?
Yeah, that's great. And I think the relationship between Ned and Jane is a bit uncomfortable because for Jane, she was escaping her past and she doesn't want the guy to be the father, but she is looking But I think at one point of the movie, she said, does. Yeah, I need to look for a father.
She's having a lot of like revelations and things thinking about during this like on the ship, right? Because she's like, oh, I don't want to be with this guy. I think I can do it. And then they're like, oh, it's going to be hard and stuff. And then when she gets with Ned, she's like, oh, this seems like a guy I would like, to be with and like help me with a kid and stuff. So I think that's why I changed her mind as well, because they actually got along.
Yeah.
And there was something there. But because I even remember when they like made out the first time, what were they were talking about something strange.
Yes.
It was something, I was talking about his mum dying of cancer or something. And then they like go to making out and going like leading to sex. I'm like, is that really like that's like the thing that put you over the line there? Like, okay. But that also leads on to kind of like how Wes Anderson, but even how Wes Anderson writes like some strange dialogue, or even like a really like
weird romance,
and or like a very pinnacle moment, which was like maybe doesn't lead to like them making out and having sex, or acknowledging it a bit. It's like, oh, okay. And it's just strange.
And during that scene, there were two dolphins with the cameras outside.
The bloody camera. Because when he said, we should just get rid of these guys. Like,
they're not smart at all.
Yeah. It's like, what?
Yeah. But to encapsulate it all, like this movie, the main meaning of the movie is about old age, growing old, and regrets. But it's also a movie about hope and fixing broken relationships when you still have the chance, because I think we need to talk about a very pivotal scene. This is when Steve and Ned on the helicopter.
Before that, they go and they save the bank guy.
Yeah.
Because they go there, they figure out where they are when they're on the island. They go and save them.
That sequence is great as well.
And they're like, oh, we've got him and we got the money. And then they open the safe. There's like a giant hole in the back and it's all gone.
But that doesn't make any sense. So why would you blow a hole in the back of the safe?
Well, if you can't unlock it from the front.
But then you would destroy all the money, wouldn't you?
Well, maybe. But you're trying to get in, you're trying to get in.
But that sequence is great. Like they got to the hotel, no one is there.
Yeah, that was great. And then the dog. The dog like sees him. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he like looks in there, and they're all there like playing cards with Hennessy. He's there as well.
Are you here to save me?
And then like the guy like shoots him, and I'm like, "Oh god!"
But he doesn't die from that.
No. I'm like, initially I'm like, he's dead.
Yeah.
They just killed him
in the chest.
Yeah, but he like gets up and he's still like going. But after that, they're like, oh shit, like, do we want to keep doing this? And then it's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get in the whirlicopter. Let's have a look around.
And there was a small moment in this sequence where Steve fell off the stairs, and he had this small moments of self-reflection. He was like, yeah, I'm not doing well. My movies are not successful, and the relationship with my son is not doing well either. So this is where he kind of recognized the consequences of his self-destructive activities. And right at this moment, like they ran into the pirates. Right, so this is very Wes Anderson style, right?
But also, like, when he falls down, he's like, did you film all that? I still love that he's like, you got all that?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's just this is part of his character, And when they all got back on the boat, and, we're going to talk about this sequence now on the helicopter. I think the conversation on helicopter is very heartfelt, because I think after this, Ned has recreated the emblem, the symbol for them.
Just before they get on,
And he made a new flag.
Yeah.
And Cloud was like, you put me on the flag?
Yeah, he was very touched by it.
Yeah.
He's like, you put me near the dolphin. You don't know how much that means for me.
Yeah. And Cloud was like, you know what that means to me? And
he's like,
he did the salute.
Yeah, and he's like, I know what it means. He's like...
Yeah. That's great. But it's unfortunate because, again, the helicopter on the Belafonte is old. And, it's not been checked for a long time. And I think before the accident happened, they noticed the red snappers, like the glowing snappers.
As they're flying over.
Yeah. And then there was a big noise and a big crash. Now, this is something that I wasn't very clear of. Was it because the shark jumped up and hit the helicopter?
No. I think it was just a helicopter being bad. Because I think he said, I think one... Ned was like, I think I heard one of the things like break and fall off. Yeah. And then they crashed.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Because when they crashed into the water and Steve is like talking to him, he's like, it's an old helicopter. We should have had that checked out. Which is sad because his son's like dying in the water and they're like talking about like the maintenance of the helicopter.
Yeah.
But I still think that's like a Wes Anderson thing. It's just a mundane thing while something horrific is happening.
Yeah. And when Ned passed away, they did a funeral thing for him as well, and they just threw him overboard.
That's all right. They gave him a coffin and stuff, you know, not like the other pirate when Hennessy comes to save him, and he's just like, just don't remember the other end.
That sequence we found out after we learned that Steve couldn't have been his father.
Yeah, it was
because
just
he's sterile.
Yeah.
So basically, this guy did everything for this guy who is not his father.
There was an underlying storyline as well about the letters they wrote, because he asked him, he's like, "Oh, do you remember this letter that I wrote you?" And he shows him the letter, and he's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "I think I remember I wrote to you." And he's like, "Yeah, I think I did." And then later it shows that he had the other letter where he did write him back. And so it was like a touching moment where it's like, whether or not he was his son, there was some kind of connection there, right?
Yeah. And of course, like something horrific happened straight after.
That's what I mean. Like when there's some meaningful growth, it's like, well, he's dead.
Yeah. Well, yep, you've done your role now. Out of the movie.
Out of the movie.
And the final sequence I want to talk about is, of course, the luminous giant shark that they discovered. After they stole all the equipment from Hennessy and they used it to track the shark.
Well, he saved him again, right? So it's like even.
Is that my coffee machine?
Yeah, I love that.
No. Then this is an Easter egg that people pointed out when they did the multiple viewings. When on the boat, there were a lot of times when the power went out and someone else always tried to fix the power.
Yeah.
But before they went to see the shark, Steve was the one who fixed the light. And he asked everyone to come with him. Instead of like, oh, get the camera, etc. Do you want to see the shark? And basically, it was a symbol of him taking control of his life again. It's like, now I need to do all of this. And I can't just rely on the people who love me to take care of me when I self-destruct. So the sequence when they get on a submarine and they dive down, and he's like, I got a giant fish in the tail to feed him.
To attract him.
And this is what we touched on quickly before. For all the animals in this movie, they use a stop motion, which will be used later in his later movies. But what do you think about this giant shark?
It's a little funny, but I do like all the effects and stuff. Because it does sell it as like another world, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like the premise behind it and why it's all in stop motion, to sell that ability. It does feel completely different world from the one we know, right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was it's like you said, it's a great moment because this is when he's finally like, okay, I'm not doing this for vengeance. I'm doing this because this is like something I need to do.
Well, he did have the chance to blow up the shark, but then he was saying something like, I ran out of dynamite.
Didn't they say they had no more dynamite?
A funny note, in this scene, this was the first or the only time that Bill Murray cries on camera.
Yeah. When he's...
Like, I wonder if it still remembers me. And I think this is... Now this scene packs a lot of different meanings. A lot people think that this is when he comes and makes peace with himself. Like, okay, I recognize that all the things I've done so far is wrong, and this is what I love. This is what I did the documentaries for, to discover things of beauty under the water, and he also recognizes that all the people around me, they are here because they love me, not because I'm famous, I'm rich, or anything like that. What do you think about that moment?
I think it was quite poetic. Like, even like all the things he's gone through, like he lost Esteban, he's lost his son, whether or not his son or not, but they had that connection, you know? And then like realizing what all of his crew meant to him. Because Klaus was like, oh, you never really give me any credit. And this is when they're on the pirate island, and he's like, oh no, you're like my main man. I trust you more than nearly anybody else. So he's like, you know, clarifying, and then even for himself, he's like, okay, this is what I'm here for. Like you said, it's like, this is his goal. This is what he wants. And he's lost so many people, and he's just like, this is all he needed to do, right? So it is a very powerful moment, I feel.
Yeah. And when we get back to his premiere for this documentary.
For this part 2.
Yeah, for this part 2, the giant shark.
Jaguar shark.
Yeah, the jaguar shark, pardon me. So he was sitting outside with Klaus' grandkid, right?
That was Jane's kid, I assume.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Because I assume he takes on... That's why I was like, it's such a weird relationship. I just assumed it was Jane's kid.
And I think this is like another development for his character, because during a lot of the conversations he had with Ned, he said, I never want to be a father.
Yeah.
But now he is acting like a father figure to this boy. He gave the boy the ring to the Zissou Society and put it on his shoulders, right?
Because even in that moment, he's sitting on the stairs and he's got a trophy, which I assume was for the film.
Yeah.
But he takes the kid and stuff and he takes that and he walks away, but he leaves the award behind because that doesn't mean anything to him anymore.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, I think nowadays people are starting to relate to his growth, his development and his struggles a bit more. And I think this is an interesting development for the tomato meter. Because now the audience score is like 80% or 88%, but before that it was really low, and it shows in the box office. But I think this is one of those movies that it needs time for people to really mellow and get to the characters a bit more.
It is a bit like strange to watch the movie if you're not used to like Wes Anderson style. It's hard like going into this film and being like,
what's going on here?
What's happening? Like if you're listening to the dialogue and things, how that people do things, it's not very straightforward and to the point. Like it is very strange. So if you're not like comfortable or not into it, I could see why people would be like, what's it getting at?
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard to, like, it's not a very straightforward story, and you have to really view it a few times. And I think you need to relate to certain moments of the movies as well to recognize the meanings.
Or just try to have some understanding of the characters and stuff. Because it can be easy to just be like, Steve's a bit of an arsehole.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, he's one of the most unlikable characters. Do you want to add anything else before we move on to the next transportation method?
Steve, transportation method. I think we did a good job of covering most of the stuff I wanted to cover. Like we probably didn't touch on Jane much, but yeah, we pretty much her kind of role, but she was just like, she was trying to figure out her own way. And like we talked about her having a kid to another man that was married in her like editor or whatever. And it's just like, she's just in a mess. Like, I feel like a lot of these characters were either in a mess or trying to figure out where they are in life, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of the best way to find out your answer is you have to jump on the boat, go on an adventure to uncharted water.
True.
And get kidnapped by pirates.
Get kidnapped by pirates as well. That always helps.
Then we can move on to the next adventure and on a different transportation method.
A train.
A train.
Instead of a boat.
Yes. So now we're on land. And the Darjeeling Limited released in 2007. And this movie performed a lot better at the box office. And it's got a smaller budget as well. So $17.5 million. And the box office was $35 million.
So about the same money making, but it's just like, if you look at a lot of sets in the aquatic life, like on the ocean, those giant ships, a lot of like exotic islands, probably cost a lot more to like bring out the actors and the filming crew and stuff. And
a lot of the underwater sequences, they had to shoot that inside the pools and things like that. And there were a few interviews where Bill Murray were talking about like the struggle to get into the water because the water is so cold. But this one,
Darjeeling Limited, just in India,
just on the train, it's hot.
India. Yeah,
it's hot. And most of the main actions happen on the train. And this is another aspect that I really like about this movie because for some reason I really like movies that's set in one of or a few locations.
Like you're saying, keep me in one spot.
Yeah, exactly. Because if the movies try to be too big, then it's very hard for me to like care about the character a little bit.
That's fair. Like maybe even a bit more down to earth.
Yeah.
Not so outlandish because we do have a lot of huge movies now.
Yeah.
Where like
our space to different universe.
Like I will say a lot of Wes Anderson stories are very like grounded.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of absurdity in his movies. I won't deny that, but his stories are very like grounded. Like you said, like family, relationships, dealing with like your life struggles and stuff. Not, too absurd with like stories, we get now.
I must say that this movie was surprisingly charming to me.
Yeah, it is very charming.
Yeah, but you want to talk about the opening sequence? I think this is one of your favorite sequences.
So Steve Zissou has missed his train, and he's in a taxi cab in India trying to catch his train.
Yeah.
But it's great. So it's funny because it's like, it's strange because we're like, for us, we weren't in the period. Like I probably would have been a teenager when this movie came out, but it would have been funny being a Wes Anderson like film buff, watching like Steve Zissou, and then going into this film and it's like, we're back with Bill Murray on like in a cab. I don't know if he did it deliberately to be like, oh, Bill Murray was the main character in my last film. Let's start with Bill Murray in a cab, like in a hurry to try to catch the train. And then him running to try and get the train, but he can't. But then having Adrian Brody's character like run past him easily, jump on the train and kind of smirk at him as he's caught the train. And Bill Murray's like, I'm too old for this shit.
And I love Adrian Brody's. I think that he's one of the super versatile actors out there.
He is. I will say the way he picks movies is probably a bit bad. I feel like he's had some very good hits, but a very lot of bad films.
Predator is one of them. Right?
Like, I think it's just, like, I don't think it's terrible, but it's just like,
it doesn't suit him though.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It doesn't suit him, but he has done other movies that are just bad. Because that's what, like, I was looking at how many films he's done. I'm like, shit, I forget how many films he's done. Because like we were talking about before, after he did The Pianist, that was a huge film. And it is, and he was amazing in it. But it's just like, it's such a weird jumping off point as like an acting career. Like something so serious, dark and moody. Like that's why it's hard. Like most people like come up from like comedies or action films and then slowly like develop where like you start out in some serious stuff. Then he's kind of been all over the place.
I think it's very hard for you to find another route when you got famous for something so dramatic. People would think like, oh, this guy is only good at dramatic roles then. So and to be fair, he has been in a few other dramatic roles.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think
they're usually the ones he shines in, I feel.
I think so too.
Compared to like maybe an action role.
Yeah.
Or a weird horror movie.
But a lot of people think that his talent is wasted in this movie in a way, because the character that he plays is a bit more docile, is a bit more calm, and more reserved and things like that. So he doesn't have a lot of room to show his acting ranges. What do you think about this?
I could see maybe why they would say that, but I think he does a great job at the character. Because like, there's no point having like a great actor and just like, build it up. Like Wes Anderson, whether you enjoy his films or not, he always has like a vision what he wants for his characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like all the movies we've watched so far, I will say like the character's always like the strong point. Like they're very thought out and clear in their like motivations and kind of where they're going to, right?
Yeah.
Like we know how they act, like Jack, right? Jack,
Peter, and Francis.
Yeah. So Peter was Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
He's like a bit docile, like a bit aloof. He steals things.
Yeah.
He kind of like maybe he's just like a bit lost. He's trying to figure out what's going on. That's kind of his character.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this film. But I don't think so. Like, I feel like it's a bit rough to be like, oh, you've cast a great actor. They need to produce something. I think that's a bit much. I think that's on a lot of things. Like, just because, why have I forgotten?
Wes Anderson, Adrian Brody.
Well, I was trying to...
Owen Wilson?
Not Owen Wilson. I was just trying to think of a good actor. But just because they're in
Robert
a film...
De Niro.
Like that. Just because they're in a film doesn't mean they're going to be great in that film and make the film great, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
There's a lot of things at play. Like, having a great actor is always good, but whether or not that's going to make the film great...
Yeah.
I think he did a great job playing this role. So I would say I would disagree overall with the thought of him, like, he doesn't have a better chance of like doing more things with the character.
Yeah.
But I think that's all he was asked for this character.
Yeah.
I don't think he needed to do anything outlandish.
And in a way, like when you are a good actor, you can help the other actors shine as well. It doesn't need to be like you have to be the top dog in every movie.
And I think Schwartzman and Wilson do great jobs as well.
Yeah,
like I think they all, even Schwartzman. I think I was like when I was looking at all the stuff they did, and he hasn't had much work really. But I think he's a good actor in like what we've seen him in Rushmore and in this as well. I think he does a great job.
Yeah. And a bit of a funny side note. He was in a short film called Hotel Chevalier, directed by Wes Anderson as a prologue for this movie. At first, Wes Anderson was planning to do this short film as a standalone project. But then he thought, Jason Schwartzman is very similar to this Jack character that I'm writing for the Darjeeling Limited. Why don't I connect the two? So he made this short film, and Natalie Portman appear in this movie. So before this, Natalie Portman was in Closer, where she plays a stripper with Clive Owen and Jude Law. And Wes Anderson approached the producer to get Natalie's Portman email, and then he emailed her about this project. Hey, do you have like 2-3 days that you can shoot this short film? And apparently this short film was received really well. They show it at a short movie festival, and then they put it on iTunes. And it's got 500,000 downloads. And probably it's got some partial nude scenes from Natalie Portman, unfortunately. And she was very upset about that. She was like, this is not the point of the movie. I did
That's
this
why
because
she's thinking. That's why they assume they got downloaded so much rather than the quality of the film.
Yeah, but like I watched the short film, and it's only involves the Jack character.
Yeah, Schwartzman and Natalie Portman.
And Natalie Portman, which was who was his ex.
Who's his ex in this film?
Yeah, and you will recognize a lot of the similar images, like the suitcase with his 3 initials and the yellow rope that he was wearing on the train. So that is from this hotel.
Well, there you go.
So he brought the rope with him from the hotel.
Because I think he mentions it in the film that he didn't see her that too long ago. And he's in the film, he's always trying to call her or see his voice. I don't know if he's checking his voicemail for her or if he's checking to like call her and trying to reach her.
Yeah, so he's trying to reach his current girlfriend. So Natalie Portman plays his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, and then...
But he's still obsessed with her.
Yeah, and he writes short stories about...
I love the short stories he writes. Because I think Peter reads the first one when they're sitting on the train. Yeah. And he's like, what's he say? I like it, but you've written me into this scene. He's like, no, these aren't.
These are fictional.
Yeah, these are fictional. And it's like, he's just like, all right.
Then we lead to the main story. So the 3 brothers are on the train. Well, the eldest brother, Francis, forced them to be on this train.
Like coerced them, I would say. He lied to them.
Yeah. And this train is supposed to be a journey of spirituality and self-discovery.
As you do in India.
Yes. Well,
Thanks to the Beatles.
But it also has a different motivation as well. The secret plan was finding their
mother.
The mother who left them. And this is also a metaphor for a grieving journey, because 1 year before they lost their father, who is supposed to be this father figure for them. Yeah. So let's talk about the 3 brothers. Yeah. So Francis, very controlling, very call it a bit deceptive. Older brother.
When he first came onto the screen, he reminded me of Dignan.
In a way, yeah. Well, it's played by the same actor.
I know it's Owen Wilson. That's why initially I had the thought and I wrote it down and I just kept it in my mind. And I'm like, he did remind me of Dignan, of being like kind of in control, being the one to like control the situation, telling everyone what to do. And that's a lot of things Dignan liked to do in Bottle Rocket. Being like, I've got the game plan. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. Because he's like, he wanted a passport. He had their like itinerary right out. He was the one that got them all to come to India. So it was like similar things. And obviously it's easy when it's Owen Wilson. It's easy to be like, okay. But that's what I got instantly. As soon as he, like, I think the first line, he's like, he's like instantly like telling him what to do. I'm like, that sounds like Dignan.
Let's go drink alcohol and take a cigarette.
Because even when they're ordering food, he's like, I think Peter wants this and I think Jack wants this. And he just tells him. And then Peter's like, I can order for myself, thank you very much. He's like,
but I do want the soup though.
Yeah, I do want the soup. That's what I found funny. He's like, but I do want that.
Yeah. And out of the 3 brothers, well, again, I think it's a common thing among Wes Anderson movies where his characters are very flawed. They are very human, and they have this distinctive character where you can not recognize them.
And they all have different struggles, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually, that's what stands out. They're not all so samey, dealing with similar things. They're all dealing, there's the overall grief.
Yes.
But they're all dealing with it in different ways, and it's all affecting their lives very differently.
Yes. So in terms of Francis, he has this physical struggle. He came back with all the bandages.
I still remember the first time I saw this movie. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, this is another complaint that we got from the viewers. Because Owen Wilson is supposed to be the eye candy.
Is he?
Yeah, and then now he's got covered in bandages.
I'm not watching the Wes Anderson movies anymore. I can't look at... Because when I was like I was watching all the films they'd been in, and this has got to be like the peak of Owen Wilson, right? He's done so many comedy films. He started probably going into a bit more dramatic stuff, but this would have to be peak, right? 2000 to 2010, right?
Yeah.
For his career. So it's still kind of crazy to me that he's just like still doing Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
like,
I mean, like people,
I would say at this point he's bigger than Wes Anderson, like during this movie, right?
Yeah, in terms of Hollywood stardom, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, like they are still friends, and they were saying,
but
like,
that's kind of crazy. Like, I don't think, like, it's not that I've watched every film that ever existed and like followed along, but it's kind of endearing that like Owen Wilson still is like, at this point where I would have been, this is like his biggest point, would have been like, yeah, I'll still, you know, do a film for you.
Yeah. I think he plays a pretty good elder brother in this movie.
Yeah. I think he does a good job.
And now we're going to talk about the middle brother, Jack Whitman, played by Jason Schwartzman. This character blew my mind when he tried to hit on the train waitress.
Stewardess? I was trying to think of the name the whole time I was watching.
Stewardess.
I'm like, what do you call it? Like an attendee, a waitress?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
it blew my mind.
Rita,
yes. But now that I watched the short film,
it makes sense.
No, it's even...
It's worse?
It's crazier because he's got an ex-girlfriend, he's got a new girirlfriend, and now he's trying to hit on the stewardess.
So he has some kind of like dependency issue with women.
Okay.
That he's always looking for connection with women, whoever's near him, maybe.
Interesting. Or like, maybe he's just horny. He's just always horny.
Like, I won't deny that either, all right?
Yeah.
But like... From what you're describing, I didn't watch the short film. I kind of wish I did going into this, but that's, you know,
that's fine.
Something to look into for later. But that kind of, and it seems like maybe he's like weird dependence on women relationship. Because I get the idea of like maybe him being horny because they do like have quick sex in like the, I can't remember what room it was, a little department room. I don't know if it was a toilet or whatever.
It's in a toilet.
And she's like, you're crazy.
Yeah. It's like,
and then he's like instantly attached to her. And she's like, they like go to leave and he's like leaving. And she's like, what are you waiting? We're meant to separate because we're not like meant to be seen together. He's like, oh, don't you want to? He's like already like into her.
Yeah.
Like if it was just like for sex sake, he would have buggered off, right? But he's like instantly like connected with her.
Yeah. That's
why I say
okay.
That it's not just horny.
So he does have a bit of a dependency issue. Well, because...
if we find out about their mother, it might be because of his mother. I would maybe.
Perhaps. And then we're going to talk about the youngest brother, Peter Whitman, played by Adrian Brody. Now, I noticed that this brother... It's harder to read because his characters is not that apparent, right?
I feel like Peter and Jack are both reserved because like I've said about Francis, he's the one that's outgoing, telling them what to do, kind of laying it all out for them, right? And Peter kind of, like we said, Peter kind of rebels a bit and be like, hey, I can order my own food. You don't need to tell me how to order food. So they're all like trying to figure it out, but it leans into Peter a bit when they're like, Francis is like, oh, are they our dad's glasses?
Yeah.
And it's like, isn't that all? Like, he shouldn't just be taking that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, are those dad's cars keys? He shouldn't be just taking those. And then later in the film, he takes Francis's belt. They're like, I think they go to pray at a temple.
Yeah.
And he's like, Francis, is that my belt? He's like, oh, yeah, I was just borrowing it. He's like, no, give that back.
This is a $5,000 belt.
Yeah, that's a $5,000 belt. And I'm like, oh. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, because he's like, the overall issue with Peter is his current partner is pregnant.
Yeah.
And is like 2 weeks away from giving birth.
Yes.
Because when he talks to him, she's like, what do you say, like 7 weeks pregnant or something? Yeah. And I'm like, bro, why are you in India?
Yeah. And I think when he says, when he talks about his struggle, this is just him being freaked out by the fact that he's going to be a father in like 5 weeks. And
I do think it's that. Like,
yeah. I think that's the main struggle, right? And I think now we can talk about their journey throughout this whole train ride. They visited a few different temples. They learned about these weird rituals with peacock feathers.
Oh, this is all Francis. He has his guy. I can't remember the guy's name.
Brandon.
Brandon with alopecia? Maybe I've said that disease wrong.
Where they go bald. Yeah.
Because he says it early. He's like, oh, don't make fun of him being bald. Because he's not bald because he's shaven. He's bald because his disease makes him bald or something. Yeah. But yeah, he's like helping them get all their plans, and even the whole, they're trying to see their mother. He's trying to get him to like contact their mother to tell them they're coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, Francis has his whole plan, like you said, going to temples. He's got this ritual. He wants to meditate and stuff.
Yeah.
But as it does in these movies, it doesn't go that way.
It never works out. And I think there were a few turning points in this movie.
I think there's a few.
There are a few, yeah. The first one, when I think they started to have a fight about all the possessions, right? And Peter was like, "Yeah,
Peter and Francis,
but I'm his favorite."
Yeah. He literally says in his dying breath, he said, "I'm his favorite son" or something. I'm like, God damn, bro. So even that's like a weird line. Like, who would say that? That's brutal as hell.
Yeah. And all the two brothers were started fighting.
Yeah.
And then Jack got out the pepper spray.
He's like, I'm going to pepper spray if you guys don't stop.
Then he ran away as well. That is such a brother thing to do, right?
Yeah. And even before that, is that when they had before the snake?
Yeah,
where Asian Brody bought the poisonous snake.
Yeah. Why would you buy a venomous snake? And brought it on board as well.
I was like, what is this?
Oh, there's a hole in my box. So the snake escaped.
Yeah, and then they're just like, was it after the fight? They're like, oh, the snake's gone.
Yeah.
And then they talked to or maybe it was after, I can't quite remember. And then they talked to the
train conductor.
The conductor, and he's like, yeah, there's a snake in there. And he's just like, oh, God, these idiots.
Because he brought a spatula.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, spatula's going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
And he gets the snake and he's like, you guys are off. Next station, you guys are off. He's like, oh, come on, you know. And he's like, they give him a bit of a sob story. He's like, all right. But you're not leaving the goddamn carriage. You're not leaving your... Yeah. You're in quarantine.
Yeah. And I think after that, they got the quarantine and because of the fight, they got kicked off the train immediately. And during this sequence, this is where I kind of noticed like, oh, they've got a lot of similar luggage, like the suitcases. And I didn't realize this, but this is a symbol of their emotional baggage
it's their dad's luggage.
Yeah.
Because later in the film, they have like a flashback to their dad's funeral. Yeah. And they go to get his car, and out of the back, there's one of the luggages.
Yeah.
So it leads in to say that they're all got their dad's luggage, essentially.
And I didn't realize that before, but this is like the symbol of the emotional baggage. And because of the father's passing as well.
And their own as well. Like they had a lot of baggage. All of them do. Apart from them grieving.
And what is your what is another turning point, do you think?
So there's a lot of like little things like Peter rebelling against Francis. Yeah. You know, them even little moments where they're like, they talk to Jack and he's like, oh, who are we talking to? He's like, oh, my ex. And he's like, hey, let's all talk as a group before you go and talk to your ex. Yeah. Like there's little bits where they try to help or have personal growth, but never quite reach it. Right. So the real turning point in the film, they get kicked off. They're all kind of walking around in the yard with their luggage and they see like a creek. And there's these 3 Indian boys trying to get on some weird contraption to like get across the creek, and it fails. Yeah. And all of them drop their luggage and all commit to try saving these boys' lives. They get 2 of them out, but when Adrian Brody's got one of the boys,
it flips.
It flips, and then they like get carried down the creek. Or the canal, I wouldn't even know. And then they all smash. He says, I had him the whole way, but then at the end, I lost him. And he like smashes into some of the rocks or the fence and he dies.
And Peter was bleeding during that time as well.
Yeah, because obviously...
He hit his head somewhere. And I must admit, this is one of my favorite sequences during this movie because up until now, you're right. Before this, they had this fire, like campfire the night before, and they tried to do the ritual, but then they did them wrong as well.
I was going to say, there's one thing we forgot to point out before going into it. Yeah. They're all addicted to drugs.
to pharmaceuticals, the Indian pharmaceuticals.
So nearly one of the first things they did, they're like talking about drugs. He's like, oh, I've got these painkillers for like my headache. Francis is like, I've got these real powerful drugs. And then even Jack's like, I've got these things I'm taking. And they're all just like, and he's like, well, don't take too much. They're all just like having it. And then when the conductor kicks them out early, he's like, do you guys have like a prescription for these? And they're like,
do you need prescriptions in India?
It gets a point across where they're kind of like probably abusing these drugs a bit for their own, because of their own, dealing with their own issues.
Pain, yeah.
No, but I just thought I'd bring that up just before we move too much.
No, it's good.
Into their development, like getting over their issues.
Yes, that is. I didn't realize that they were using it as a way to get high before.
Yeah, because like they all taking it because they've all dealt with stuff. But then when that's what I thought was funny. Like the second they introduced to each other, I was like, he's like, I got my painkillers. Like, I'm using this. It's like, this is quite strong. I'm like, these guys are insane because they're doing it when they're eating dinner, and the German ladies are all just like.
Ladies, stop looking at us.
Yeah, because they're like talking later in German, and they're talking really late. He's like, ladies. He's like, keep it down. And I'm like, mate, you were just sharing drugs before. I don't know if you have much right to bloody comment on how these German ladies are talking on the train.
No, that's great. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, but if we get back to the sequence of the water, I think during this time when
this is their lowest point, it kind of feels in the story as well.
And I think this is where they kind of
they all kind of hate each other.
Yeah.
They're all very lost. Like whatever they're trying to do hasn't really fallen through. Did they know about they're trying to meet their mother now? And they all wanted out. The other Jack and Peter want out because they're like, no, we don't want to do this.
Yeah, we will never come back here. And I think they were on the way back. And I think Francis was about to give up and give their passport
I think he
back.
had, because he was literally like, oh, let's just go to the airport and go home. Let's not keep going.
Yeah, that's right. And I think they met the boys and then they rescued the boys, and the other two boys brought them back to the village.
And they carried the dead body back as well.
That scene is very heartbreaking. And we got back to
that
the
whole
village.
sequence as well with the village. Yeah, no, you go on.
No, and I'm just going to say that they brought the boy back to the father, played by Irfan Khan, the late Irfan Khan. And even though he doesn't have any lines or any dialogues in this movie, but we still recognize the pain.
The funeral was brutal. It was already kind of brutal, the whole scene when they're in the village and like the kids and stuff. I will say there was one funny scene when they're in the rooms. They're just, I don't know if they're just like, I can't remember what they were doing, but the doctor like walks past and like comes back around and walks into the house that he walks past, and the kid like grabs him and like takes him along. I just thought it was funny because he's like runs past and then like comes past us again. I'm like, all right, what is this doctor doing? This kid's dying here.
I guess he's the only doctor of the village.
Probably is.
So he doesn't know which house to go to. I looked at him,
I'm like, is that the doctor? And then he like comes back into frame and like walking the wrong way around him. Oh my God.
And during this sequence, we got, before they went to the funeral, they got on the bus to leave.
So the village were helping him and like, oh, we'll get you the bus and then we'll leave. And they all go sit on the bus. And then one of the boys comes back on and says, he tells Owen Wilson's character, Francis, that he's like, we're invited to the funeral. Yeah. And they're like, all right, we're going to go. Yeah.
And during this funeral, we got to see another short film right in the middle of the movie where they were on the way to visit, to attend the father's funeral.
Yeah, the father's funeral. Because I think it's a valid point because they kind of dodged it a bit to go to get the car. I can't remember why they wanted to go get the car for.
Yeah. Because I think for them, this is like a symbol of the thing that the father... one of the things that he didn't complete, so they went to the shop and then the car. The shop owner was like, "It's not finished. It's not ready."
And they try to part. And they try for like 10-15 minutes to try to get it out. But then the funeral's already started.
Peter tried to push the car all the way to the funeral.
They were trying to like jumpstart it. Yeah. And then it didn't work, and then they push it back in because is it Allison? Is that his
Rita?
wife? No, Rita's the waitress or the attendant.
Probably Allison.
Is Allison Peter's wife? She calls him, is like, where the hell are you guys? And he's like, we're gonna have to start in like 10 minutes. There's another funeral. We're like, can't wait for you guys. And then I think Francis is like, yeah, send the car. We're fucking this up. Yeah. And that's when they find the luggage. They look in because it's a Porsche, and a Porsche has the boot in the front. Yeah. So they get it, and that's when they take the luggage and they like head back. But I think it is a metaphor as well for where they kind of didn't really take the funeral very seriously compared to like this little boy, and it's an actual moment for them to grieve.
Do you think that they missed the father's funeral?
I don't know if they missed it, but at least No,
it just came to maybe because during that time, maybe in a way they were trying to avoid to go to
but that's what I mean.
Right?
Like they didn't really want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And even the whole mother situation as well. They're like, oh, mum's coming. Yeah. And then on the same phone call, she's like, oh yeah, she's not coming. She literally said she's not coming. Yeah. So it's like a whole thing for them, and it's just not like, funerals are meant to be something to like come together with all your family and grieve for someone you've lost, and they didn't really get that. So this is like another moment for them as a family, as brothers, to be like,
to experience
this is what we needed. This is a moment to all come together and like appreciate the loss. And then I think that's why it's a huge moment in the film, because this is when they're like, okay, because they get all the way to the airport and they literally get to the plane and they're like, nah, let's go talk to our mum. Look how far we've come,
exactly. And I think that was a big development for them. And I just found the sequence of them meeting the mother is funny. And she was like, oh, you've grown so much, but don't stay out at night, there's a tiger. What?
They're like, great joke. And she's like, no, like seriously. And like points at like the footprints.
Like, oh, this is big tiger.
And it's like, what'd she say, killed one of them or one of her people? And it's like,
it's got one of the kids or something.
Yeah, I was like, Okay.
Of course, in Wes Anderson style, he's kind of downplayed a little bit. Yeah, this giant tiger eats people, but don't worry about it.
But the one thing I noticed that when they get to their mum, she's very much like Frances. She's like already telling them what to do. And when they go to have like breakfast the next day, she's like, oh, Frances will have this, Peter will have this, Jack will have this. So she's like already like in control of the whole situation. But then they try to talk to her about like why the hell she wasn't there. And she's like,
And I think this is one of my favorite moments as well, because all these characters have been through so much. There's so much to talk about, and there's so much hate, there's so much rage. So the mother was just like, let's just not talk. Let's just hold hands. And then just feel each other's presence, right? And I think it was a bit of an interesting choice. It's a good development as well. I think it's still
touching, but as we know in the morning when they're just, your mum's fucking buggered off again. And you're just like,
can't believe this.
So it's just like you can't win, but it's more of an achievement for them than their mother, I think. I think they already knew, but they just like, I think that's fair to be like why the hell were you like, our father died and you just thought it's not worth going.
Did they have the phone call back to their home countries when they came back from visiting their mom? So like they were on the payphone, and the two brothers like, oh, who is he talking to? Oh, he's talking to the voicemail.
But then also that's when that was earlier when he found out that he's having a boy, right?
Yeah, correct. He wasn't born yet though. But his wife was screaming at him on the phone. You are where?
You're in India?
But yeah, so I guess the final point that we can talk about this movie is what is the meaning behind all of these crazy actions and self-discovery.
I think it is very straightforward. It is kind of like we've got these three kind of broken individuals trying to deal with their grief, with the loss of their father. And they're trying to deal with it in different ways and not really successfully dealing with it, right? Abuse of drugs, avoiding situations, falling back to old issues and old problems, trying to be in control of the situation but not really. And then like an ultimate situation where they all have to work together and put past their differences to try to save these kids. And then putting in perspective, all their issues don't really mean much. Because even later in the film, Francis is like, you can have the belt. Give
the belt to your kid.
Because he's just like, it's another moment of like, okay, we're over this. And he's like, he brings out the passports and gives them back their passports. He's like, I don't not trust you, because I feel like it was a big trust issue between all of them. Because early in the film, they're all telling each other secrets, but he's like, oh, don't tell him. Oh, don't tell him. But it's just like now they trust each other, Now there's some belief there. They're not so like, not trying to backstab each other, but no trust. There's no trust between any of the brothers. But after this like clarifying moment, it's like, okay, we don't have it that bad. And, when we really do work together, we can achieve stuff. And it's not so broken.
Well, that's fair. And I think this is a good ending point for this episode, unless you want to include anything else.
I feel like there's so much. Because even this film, I feel like there's so much to talk about that we maybe didn't touch on. But like, it's literally a journey on the train. It is like metaphor and physical for like both of them, right? And even like we were talking about the baggages at the end of the film, when they go to jump on the train again, they drop all the baggage. They leave it all behind to get on the train. So it's like metaphorically leaving all their old baggage behind and then going on their train to go back to their lives without their baggage behind. And like you were saying before, like, because that's what I was thinking. Because when I remember the flashback and seeing the luggage, I'm like, was that their father's luggage? And then when they left it all behind at the end, I'm like, it has to be, right? Because that is like a beautiful metaphor for like this story of these characters.
And they were talking to each other prior to that as well, because they were like, oh, because they were not carrying the luggages. All the people from the village was carrying the luggages for them. And they were like, that's luggage, it's not going to make it. And then they all looked at each other and smiled. And
exactly, because they all understood it. Which is hilarious. I love when they jump on, they're looking back and all the guys are just like,
bro, come on, you ask us to carry all this luggage, man. Yeah, this is, but basically it's like, you're right. It's a metaphor. Like you left all your baggage behind, but if you have someone to carry the luggage for you in a way, it will make it easier to leave it behind in a way, right?
It can, but I think it is just literal for leaving it behind, right?
Yeah.
Because they've literally, through this whole movie, they've figured out like all the stuff they don't need and all the things they were stressing about and worrying about. It's not such a big deal. Like he's happy about having his kid. He's moving on from his ex. Because they have that final scene, like the dollhouse, like you said, with the train. I thought it was a great scene. Because that's when I saw Natalie Portman. And I was like, why is Natalie Portman in this?
Yeah.
And I just kind of I looked back at who she was and it said ex-girlfriend. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes. So this small sequence at the end of the movie was was created as a symbol of the world outside of these three brothers' world, right? And everyone seems to be on their own train to revelation and reconnection. And there are a few other characters as well. So Peter's wife was in there. Brandon was on the plane. And Bill Murray
was there again. Finally got onto a train.
But yeah, I think this is a great movie. I personally prefer this to the Life Aquatic.
But I will say that they both have like metaphors and overarching like stories.
Yeah.
But I do think in the Darjeeling Limited, it is a bit more straightforward and easy to follow. That's maybe the only difference with the aquatic life, where it's like a bit more frenetic with its story. But like, I do think it is touching story with the Steve story as well, like what he goes through.
Absolutely.
And loss. Like both of these characters go through loss, dealing with ego, dealing with their own faults and stuff, and like pushing through that to like move on in life, or even, move through tragedy and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, I'm trying to think, even the Royal Tenenbaums deals with similar things, and even in Rushmore deals with similar things.
Yeah.
But, that's what I mean. That's why I like these films so far. Because they're just like, they all have like dealing with, your issues and trauma and like in different ways and with different characters.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can follow along or, understand it. But I think it is there though. Yeah. Like, I don't think it's like a nothing burger, there is something there.
I think these movies are very rewatchable, so we can definitely rewatch it. Anything else you want to?
No, I think that's a good point to end it on, Darren.
Yeah. And we have reached the end of the episode. If you like this episode so far, click the like button, click on the subscribe button, and turn on the bell for the latest episode. And I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
And this has been Movie Beings.